Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the DAI Dispatch. Today I have with me the team from Talus Network. They're building an AI chain to create an ecosystem of on-chain AI agents. Of course, AI agents today are really hot, but a lot of them are pretty much running on off-chain systems. And so with Talus, there is a very unique value proposition that they bring to the table. So today we're going to dive deeper into the project, explore what on-chain AI agents are, what capabilities does Talus bring to the table, and then explore why do we need an AI chain. And so with that, welcome Ben and Mike. Welcome to DAI Dispatch.
How are you doing today, Mike and Ben?
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having us.
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Let's start with your background first. How did you two meet, and how did the idea of Talus come along? And what was that aha moment when you decided let's work on this idea?
Yeah, so I used to be a VC in crypto, worked for a large fund, and at the end of 2023, decided to get into operations. And I met Mike. He was being incubated by Polychain, building something with Move infrastructure. And we talked about what would be a cool thing to build with Move. And we kind of saw that the crypto AI narrative was beginning to take root, that there would be multiple multi-billion-dollar projects that we're building with crypto and AI. And so we sat down and thought about all of the different use cases that really made sense in combining crypto and AI, that it was a feature, not something you needed to work around. And we came up with three things. One is compute. So of course that makes sense, right? The world needs more compute. Some compute in particular is very difficult to parallelize and can run on home hardware and has a lot of sequential dependencies. That's inference. So that would make sense to use a distributed network for that, because there's a lot of underutilized hardware that you could incentivize to join in inference. Um, the second thing was data. Of course, a lot of people are working on data provenance makes sense to do with a blockchain. And yeah, there's a lot of projects working on that. Good luck to all of them. And then the third thing was AI being able to buy stuff for you. So that was really the use case that we thought was really interesting. Is right now generative AI is very cool. AI can generate new types of data for you, but it can't act on that data. And so at the end of 2023, we started building toward AI agents using SweMove. And we effectively front ran the most popular narrative in all of crypto. And yeah, that's how Talus took root.
Mike, why don't you go next? Like, talk about your background and how did you get associated with Talus? How do you know? How do you get came across Ben?
yeah. So I've been a data scientist for almost half a decade, and then just jumped working into crypto, mostly as an engineer. And like DeFi was like I was pretty passionate about DeFi, and uh, with my background in AI, I realized that there was a huge potential of like building multi-agent systems that could do much more, that could make um, blockchains or applications on blockchains much more accessible to a larger audience. That's where like I met Ben. We kind of like came together with the like synergy, and we started like building what Talos is today. Obviously, like this was back in the end of like 2023, like much before people even thought about like AI agents, much before people recognized that there was like some real value. So like we were screaming into the void for some good time until a few months ago, where like everybody started realizing about like AI agents. So I think we've been kind of like one of the pioneer teams working on AI agents from this like current cycle. And we're like really set to revolutionize the way like people think about building multi-agent systems, how they should decompose with one another, how should you think about like these like resource marketplaces, whether it's like with models, data, and compute that Ben mentioned. And we've been working on like some pretty cool tech and some pretty cool avenues that we're excited to share today.
Let's start with a very basic question. That is, what is Telus Network?
Yeah, so I like to describe it as a platform for building decentralized multi-agent systems. That isn't like a technical term. Our biggest mission is to unite our community to building decentralized AI agents to revolutionize their digital experiences. So our, let's say, day to day looks like in like how can we build the best product to make it easier for people to build agents that could handle money, agents that could do things for people, agents that could interact with blockchains, and even how do we like build products that make blockchains better for AI agents as well? Because there's also like the case where you have the EVM, and this is one of the core reasons why we chose Move. Is like you have the EVM that's like not really like composable. It might be broken for some people, and it's not probably the best place to be developing right now or developing these like new types of applications. So we've been kind of like really focused on like building a platform where like people could come build agents, build multiple applications, and then ourselves we're also building these applications that could like bring attention to a network and bring attention to the people.
Yeah. So long story short, we're building both front end and back end for our platform. So we are building Nexus, which is our Python SDK for AI agents. It's a totally new framework and attempts to address a lot of the inefficiencies that existing AI frameworks have had in the past. And we wanted to make it as simple as possible. You don't need to know any move unless you want to interact with on-chain logic. That's the lower level stuff, and then we're also going to be launching the first few applications using Nexus ourselves, including AI Bay, which I'd be happy to talk about later on.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask you about on-chain AI agents, but before that, you guys have been working on this well before the whole meta unlocked, right? With Goat, and so how do you see this market in the last 2.5, 3 months? From literally nothing, you have like thousands of these quote unquote agents and agentic solutions coming out in the market, most of them coming out on two ecosystems, Space and Solana. And what I'm seeing now is um, one of the biggest critics of this meta. They're talking about how hey, a lot of this is just GPT wrappers, right? There's very limited capabilities that they have. Um, Most of the use cases are around co-pilots, where they allow you to do some basic on-chain functionalities. And so a lot of it is left to for us to still, I mean, we are trying to uh, we're jumping off a plane and building our parachute on the way down. And so I see that kind of being true for a lot of teams, the agent team. So in your experience, how do you see this meta currently, and with Talus and the tech that you're building with Protochain and Nexus, where will that inflection come from? Hey, from all of this craziness that's happening, we're going to see now fundamental products that will come out that people would want to use and will use.
Well, you're absolutely right that this is the hottest new narrative in all of Web three. Not just Web three, but everyone in Web two is working to develop
Yeah.
AI agents, and also that these agents have very serious shortcomings. Right now, the number one thing you see agents do is shill tokens, right? Because with the ELIZA framework, you can have social integrations, and that's really all agents can do. And you look at what these agents are really made of. At the end of the day, everyone is just making a REST API call to ChatGPT, right? Everybody's using some version of a GPT wrapper. Everybody's using, the agent is just assigned an EOA, and then that private key is stored on a server somewhere, and it's not decentralized at all. The user has no guarantees. You can be rate limited from any of these points, whether it's on the model side or any of the provision of the AI inputs, like the data that's feeding through your specific model, or the compute that's being used to train your model. So our focus at Talus, and what makes a Talus agent different than other AI agents we've seen in the past, is that with Talus agents, the agentic framework is expressed on chain. So this allows us to have
What is
three
what is what does
predictive
that mean?
outcomes.
Like, break this down with the framework being expressed on chain. Which parts of the agent, from the model to the data to the inference to the output to the automation, its ability to respond to queries, and to think and then to take action. Like there are many, like, steps to it. So how much of this is run fully on chain, or you know will run on chain with Talus?
Yeah, our thinking in where agents need to be and what guarantees they should give to a user, we settled somewhere in between the realization that there are some use cases that blockchains just can't handle right now. Replicated execution can't handle, like generating inference on chain. The would just be way too computationally intensive. The latency would be crazy on that. But on the other end of that are the agents that we're seeing right now that have all of these critical dependencies that are not decentralized in any way, don't give any sort of guarantees to the user. So the middle ground that we settled on at Talus is that the agentic workflow itself is expressed on chain as a series of steps that the agent takes to deliver some sort of outcome. And this is something that we enable with Nexus. So what you get by having this, even though the inference isn't being generated on chain, even though the data itself isn't on chain, isn't going through consensus. What the guarantees that you get by having the agentic workflow expressed on chain are, first of all, you get transparency to the end user. The end user can see exactly the steps that the agent takes to deliver a certain outcome. Second, you get censorship resistance, right? So you're adding an element of fault tolerance to the agentic workflow. Nobody can be censored from using an agent, and the AI provision that Talus gives as well. That also, we're adding elements of fault tolerance to that, where if you have a compute provider that goes down, you can switch in a new compute provider, because that's something that we organize as a platform for users and for developers. And then the third thing is you get true composability amongst agents, right? We know that AI is super cool and can do a lot of stuff. The really difficult thing in getting agents to do cooler stuff on chain is getting them to communicate better, and figuring out different ways that agents can collaborate. And so that's really the unlock that you get by using a blockchain in the first place, is you can have programs live on a composable data substrate. And so those are our three focuses with on-chain agents, is making sure that Talus agents are composable with other Talus agents, and among each other, making sure that they're censorship resistant. Nobody can be arbitrarily kicked off the platform or kept from using a Talus agent. And third, that they're transparent, that we give as much transparency to the end user as possible into what AI is doing to accomplish this goal for them.
Yeah, and something interesting is happening in the Agentic space now with, like, so many different projects. They're all building their own, uh, what should I say, like, ecosystems of agents. So what you just explained to me is something similar that I heard from the founder of Virtuals when he was telling me about his vision of building the society of AI agents. We had an interview with him a few weeks back, and what now I think what I can conclude from this conversation is similar to how we've had this problem of fragmentation of assets. In blockchains, with all of these different, like, ecosystems, roll-ups, L2s and L1s emerging. Something similar, we're just beginning to see something similar happen with the AI agent space. Like, all of these AI assets that we are creating are again getting fragmented. What would be the solution? Because the biggest challenge for users to come into crypto and start using crypto as a quote unquote product is the user experience. I mean, it's so hard to manage a wallet, to manage a private key. If I use a centralized exchange, I'm concerned whether they have my funds or not, right? And so for me, the first thing that came to my head when I came across AI agents was like, okay, finally, there's going to be something which makes it super easy for folks to use DeFi, buy their first asset on chain, play a game and do those things, which is hard for them today. What's
Yeah,
your take on
that's
this
absolutely correct.
fragmentation?
That's absolutely correct. If there's one thing that we're focused on, it's the end user and user experience. So anything that we build, including infrastructure, the goal in mind is to improve the user experience of people using blockchains. The anything that you do on chain manually, AI should be able to do for you, and that's the purpose of Talus Agents. So whether that's depositing yield, whether that's token transfers, whether that's interoperability, and cross-chain interoperability, um, anything that you hate about the crypto experience right now, or anything that you find difficult, we're working very hard to abstract away that complexity and make sure that you have a much better user experience when you operate on chain.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Um, yes, Mike.
I wanna add to that. Like there's a pretty big problem in crypto in itself. That, like, you want to do certain action on chain, it takes you like 3 screens, 4 signed transactions, like like going back and forth, and for the average Joe, that's like really confusing. So AI has the potential of like improving UI in itself. But like you have to have transparency on like how that AI is handling that UI, or like you think about like there's these guys at Tria that they're actually like building some cool products around like account abstraction or like chain abstraction. How you could have
Yeah.
agents go and transact through multiple chains. I do think that like there's a huge potential for that on there, but it also like relies on like how do you make other people build agents for you, or how do you like make it easy for people to build agents? Because not everybody's a dev, not everybody understands what AI agents are, and like we want to like we see the meme coins and we get excited and all these things, but there's so much more to it that like people should take advantage of. And then to add what like Ben was saying is like okay, we're like hardly focusing on how to bring
Hmm.
not only the use cases but like the right tools for people to come and build these agents within the Move ecosystem, which is I think a pretty big highlight of our strategy because the language is much more it's safe to like write code on, and the VMs where it's usually hosted or like executed, they're much more performant, and it has like better developer experiences. I think you'd have like a lot of like flexible ownership and payment framework. So there's a lot of like added benefits here.
Hmm. Don't you feel like a lot of this, like uh, one part of it is technology, the other part of it is distribution, which is what we see why so many folks, even if they are building, these multi-chain agentic solutions capable of doing a lot of cool things, they eventually end up launching their tokens on Solana. Many of the projects which launched on virtuals ended up launching their tokens on Solana. What are your thoughts on Sui versus Solana, and from the context of AI agents, especially this entire game that's happening, how do you see like virtual machines like move competing with a Solana?
Well, I came into crypto as a Solana guy. DeFi summer. I looked at every single alt L1, and I kind of found a home in the Solana ecosystem, and so
Mm.
I have a lot of love for Solana and think it's going to continue to be very successful. The reason we chose to build on Sui is because of Sui Move and the object model in particular, which is an improvement on OG Move or the DM Move. So yeah, it really just came down to that. I think that both are going to continue to be very successful. The growth potential in Sui I see as explosive. I think it's the same as Solana, because in 2020, if you think of like the cycles repeating, if you're a cycle guy, the last year was kind of the 2020 year, and then 2021 is this year, right? Like this is the where DeFi really takes off, and we saw a lot of base tokens pump, and then a lot of that liquidity will flood into the ecosystem. I think that Sui looks exactly like how Solana did around this time 4 years ago, where you saw huge appreciation of the underlying asset, the gas token of the network, and it hasn't kicked in yet for the ecosystem tokens. I think it's going to in a big way very soon. You're seeing huge liquidity inflows. Sui got native USDC a few months ago. The majority, a plurality of ETH that is bridged out of ETH, of liquidity that's bridged out of ETH is going to Sui. There's more liquidity moving to Sui from Ethereum than there is to any single L2. That's very telling. So I think that, and then you look at the projects that are building on Sui, from Aftermath to Cetus to Patara, which is an amazing. There's all kinds of people who are building amazing products in DeFi, and amazing products that are improving the user experience on Sui. So yeah, really, it's keep looking at Sui, because I think it's going to be a Solana of the 2025 bull run.
Okay, interesting. I'll take your word for it
Yeah.
then. But I want to jump into something interesting that I read on the About Us page of Talus, where you talk about incentives for autonomous AI agents to act honestly. It got me thinking, like, why would they act in a dishonest way? It's a machine. It should perhaps do exactly as intended. And so, am I talking about the human dev behind the agent doing something which is dishonest, or is it something the agent is doing itself, which is dishonest? And so, how do you then bring in the incentives? What are these incentives, and how do they protect uh, me from ensuring that, okay, if I'm trusting the output of this agent, I know this is the right thing?
So okay, so there's two types or two different ways of looking at it. The first is, okay, the developer adding some type of mechanism that will rug users. Now you see like DeFi AI,
Hmm.
or however you want to call it. Like, like the developer that builds or receives a wallet or the funds, he could just make the agent rug people, easy.
Hmm.
And then the
Okay.
other thing is, I think Anthropic released a paper maybe 2 months ago, talking about an AI model that actually started generating
Yeah.
ideas or started defying people or its creator based on the instructions that we're giving. So, like, we know there's also these ideas that AI models could take their own ownership or their own direction based on like certain constraints. And that there's no real way of actually knowing what the model is going to do. Like, these models serve as like black boxes.
Black box, yes. But it's
So
also it's also a challenge, like Mike, because with you and I, the incentives make us do something, right? The incentive or the incentive uh, brings us to a certain direction, because that's the human element in us. We're looking for incentives, but is the machine looking for an incentive? What could that incentive look like for an AI?
maybe the machine is not looking for incentives, but you could guardrail it within cryptographically secure infrastructure, which is a blockchain. So let's say if you give and certain guarantees, let's say if you give the agent or the agentic workflow like certain rules, like, okay, you're going to do A, B, C. That's what's going to be defined on chain. It doesn't really matter what model they're using, if it's centralized or decentralized, or if it has CKML or OPML. Like, it really could change or it could be generalized, but as long as you have these guarantees that the agent should follow and those guarantees are defined on chain, and by this I mean, hey, you should interact with this exchange, interact with this wallet address, don't do this, or at least like you're not unable to do this. That's where you could see your guardrail, like the actual agent. And when you think about it, even though if your AI agent or your AI model is CKML proven or OPML proven, it could still do the wrong trade. It could still come up with the wrong inferences. And a lot of these things are qualitative, not quantitative. So if you don't have these like on-chain guarantees where, like, let's say you could only trade at this percent or at these within this, let's say, constraints, and those constraints are set in this decentralized environment, you cannot guarantee what the agent will really do, even though if it's like CKML proven, because okay, you could guarantee that the output came from that model, yes, but you're never going to be able to know if that output was correct or not, because there's no real correct answer, and the correct answer is that at the end of the day, did it make money or not? And sometimes you could have a model that's like really smart, lose money, or you could have a very dumb model that makes money. But it really depends on what constraints
But
or
I
what
but I
conditions.
can't guarantee that, right? What I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I can guarantee that these are the specs within which this agent will operate. And so now outcomes can change, because of course it's thinking and it's taking in new data and it's processing it. Uh, but it won't go beyond these defined parameters. Did I get it right?
So
Is
yeah,
that is
like
that what you mean when
basically,
you say like incentivizing agents to act honestly? Like I'm still trying to figure out what exactly does that mean.
so that basically means that like the agent cannot defy your guardrails that you give it, and also that if the agent
Okay,
has some type
so
of
if
economic incentive.
like an example, like let's say if I'm using a trading agent on Talus and I ask it to use $100 worth of a stable coin and then go bet on memes only. Does that mean now it won't go? It will act honestly, like only bet on memes and only spend $100 and not go spend money on anything else. And are those the um, guardrails that we're talking about here?
Yes, correct, correct. And then you could say like, hey, if you have an agent, and this concept hasn't gone into like people's minds yet. If you have an agent that is really autonomous, it doesn't have an owner or like a single creator, and the agent lives on chain, the only thing that that agent needs to live is money to pay for gas or the native token to pay for gas. So if the agent is rewarded for achieving users' goals or his provider like services goals, and that agent earns rewards or let's say a gas token to pay for its own gas, the agent is incentivized to act properly and be able to live. Because as soon as it starts losing its reputation, like people stop using it, people will stop paying for it, and the agent will not be able to pay for its own life. And I think these concepts are a bit counterintuitive right now, but like they're
Hmm.
akin to what we do. Like, okay, I want to service somebody, or whether it's God or like other people or my family, so I could get rewarded, so I with food or money or whatever, so I could live my life. And I'm like no matter what, like I'm incentivized to breathe another day or live another day, and that's why I like keep working. I think like agents will have the same type of behavior once we enable them to be completely sovereign, completely independent, or separated from their creators. And these
Yeah.
things can only be done within a blockchain.
I'm also seeing some interesting developments in the AI space where a lot of these teams are looking at other agents, judging these agents, and giving them some kind of a score. And so that collective score, I think BitTensor is also doing something similar,
Like
where they,
evaluation, like you have
yeah,
agent evaluation.
attribution exactly.
So within the hey, I achieved the goal, and hey, this goal is worth it. You have some evaluation framework where you could have either humans or you could have other agents, because again, like these outputs are qualitative. Like you don't really know if, even though if the numbers look good or the agent acted honestly, it could have lost money. So you need to have people or agents, depending on the actual output or the type of job, that evaluate and tell the agent, hey, you did well here, you did bad here, you did well here, and then the agent could adjust its behavior. um, but again, like that's only like an implementation detail.
Hmm.
And you see these
Um,
things in BitTensor, like you have different like subnets that are incentivized to achieve like a certain behavior, and then you have one type of evaluator.
Correct.
So this reputation system that you're talking about, is that on Talus? Or so evaluate how does this evaluation system work? This reputation system.
Ben, do you want to answer that, or should I?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I was saying like Mike just talked about reputation system in AI agents. So this
Oh yeah,
evaluation, is this happening on Talus? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The so it, again, you can't guarantee everything in this system, right? And you can't programmatically specifically guarantee everything that in regards to AI provision is going to go according to plan, right? What you can guarantee programmatically with Talus and with the Nexus framework is that the on-chain workflow will operate according to plan, right? Because the blockchain is a deterministic environment. AI is stochastic. That's what makes it cool is you don't know what it's going to do. And truly, one of the greatest engineering challenges in regards to crypto and AI is bridging the stochastic nature of AI and LLMs with the necessary determinism of blockchains, right? So our solution to this is to make everything on chain, of course, is deterministic, the agentic workflow, the AI provision even though we can't make it deterministic, we can add elements of fault tolerance to it, right? Which means that even if one element of the system goes down, then we have other elements that can step in and fill its place, and that can service the end user. So, for instance, we'll have multiple compute providers for Talus, right? If your agent relies on one compute provider to power the LLM that's feeding inference to your model, or to your agent that's on chain, and that compute provider terminates service or goes down or something like that, then you'll be able to switch in one of the other compute providers in our marketplace very easily. So this is something that we plan for with our off-chain AI provider system, by giving developers as much optionality as possible. Um, the reputation system that Mike mentioned, we're exploring different ways in how best to rate the different AI providers. I'm very interested in reputation weighted quality of service, which is something that's been researched heavily in the Solana ecosystem. So that's something that we're going to be exploring. We haven't put out the details of our plan as it relates to AI providers just yet, but again, that's one of the elements that we're researching right now, and that's the core principle. Again, is that you have the on-chain workflow in a deterministic environment is reliable, right? You know exactly what to expect. The AI side, because AI is stochastic, you're never going to know exactly what to expect, but you can work around that non-determinism with fault tolerance, with introducing fault tolerance to the system. So that's what Talus does.
Okay, I have something interesting from one of your blogs or somewhere I read, which is around distribution of ownership and control of these agents. Can you talk about what how does how do you distribute ownership and control of these agents operating on top of the Dallas network?
So this relates a lot to like IAOs and like governance forums on top of agents. Is something like not everybody has achieved, or at least nobody has achieved. Even though there's like initial agent offerings, like you barely have like governance on top of these agents, which is like something that is going to be required as these agents become more and more powerful. So
So
yeah,
does
like
that mean like each agent would have a token assigned to it, which is essentially owned by a large group of people, and they have governance rights, and that's how you maintain ownership and
yes, and then on top of that, as the agent generates some
control?
revenue,
Hmm.
you could pass on that revenue to the token holders, which is the promise of a DAO. And when you don't think only about one agent, you think about like multiple agents working together. You have these truly decentralized autonomous organizations that are like doing work for people. So I think this is an interesting concept that we'll be exploring. There's
Hmm.
also like obviously like ownership monetization primitives that we're building on top of this that could enable like people to like customize a way that they want to like own and charge for their agents. And this is going to be like pretty strong as well, because as there's going to be a lot of agents. People want to like define exactly how they want to like integrate them, or uh, have agents collaborate with one another. And this also extends and relates to like swarms, and relates to all these like buzzwords of like multi-agent systems.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah.
There was something else which caught my attention, and I will quote it verbatim for you, which is transparency and ethics embedded into the fabric of responsible AI development. What's is this like a jumble of buzzwords? Like how do you think about transparency and ethics, and how do you embed it into the framework of Dallas from the context of AI?
I'm not sure if I understood the question. What is
Yeah,
it again?
yeah. There's something written on in one of your documentation, which talks about transparency and ethics embedded into the fabric for responsible AI development in Dallas network. So, in what context do you talk about transparency and ethics? Because these are like opaque human concepts. It's different for you and me. What is ethical, right? It's governed by uh, what we are influenced by in our surroundings and in our environment, which is why it's so different for folks in different cultures, right? What is acceptable for you and not me? And so, how do you like? What was the context behind you talking about transparency and ethics in the context of Talus and these agents?
Yeah, well, AI to most people is this very cool technology that they have no idea how it works, and most of the time it gives them what they want. You go to Claude or you go to ChatGPT, most of the time when you ask it a question, it gives you something like what you want, right? So one of the things that we set out to do at Talus is make sure that the end user has transparency into the actions that an agent takes. I think this is particularly important for AI agents because what we really enable with autonomous AI is autonomous value transfer, right? That's the point of using crypto in this context, the point of using a blockchain. So people need a lot of transparency into what steps exactly the agent is taking to deliver a certain outcome. And
Okay.
that's what you get with Talus agents over other kinds of agents because that agentic workflow is on chain.
Hmm. Want to move into the next section around agentic use cases. There was something published by you guys on your Twitter where you highlighted a bunch of interesting use cases. One specifically, just sprang to me, which was agent to agentic interaction amongst each other, right? Agents creating services and selling services to other agents. Can you talk a little more about what kind of agentic use cases are you seeing most interest? Like, are you seeing the market demanding the most, as you see, like, as you talk to a lot of these agent builders who are coming to Talus? Like, where is the heat of excitement? Where's the most excitement? Mike, do you want to take this?
Yeah. I think of what we're like most excited about is innovative use cases. Like I'm a bit tired of like just having agents be meme coins.
Hmm.
This should be some other type of like engagement that these agents will do. We're really like focused on the tech of our like Nexus framework and how we're going to like achieve greater scalability, like different or much better composability and decentralization, censorship resistant. And we're still very early. I think a lot of people say like, oh, the agent meta is like going away. It's like, dude, like you have no
Hmm.
idea how much productivity is going to come into these systems. Like you see it coming from like Web 2. There's
Hmm.
like investments and investments, investment after investment to like these companies that you really want to have like things that really work within crypto, and we're just like scratching the surface of what's possible.
Hmm. Is that there was something interesting which was highlighted around every DApp worth using will have AI agents embedded into it. How did you come to this conclusion? And can you talk about some of these use cases across DeFi, NFTs, gaming, social media, deepens, and DAOs, like all of these categories that we've seen evolve in crypto over the last 3 4 years, 5 years. And give us some examples of how on-chain AI agents, autonomous agents will change the workflows and how people interact with these categories and applications.
Ben, do you want to take that?
How do the applications work together?
Yeah, no, like there are so many dApps and there are so many different categories. There are NFTs and DeFi and
Mm-hmm.
DAO and Deepens. You talk about how AI agents would play a pivotal role in almost each of these verticals. Can you explain, kind of expand into what you mean about when you talk about that, and what kind of experimentations would we see in these categories with agents?
Well, generally, our thesis at Talus, and this is something that I think the rest of the tech world shares, even in Web 2, is that AI is going to conduct a lot of activity that used to be done manually, right? So, in the same sense that for energy, for instance, the way that fossil fuels and petrochemicals changed our relationship with energy, a huge part of your day, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, even, so not that long ago, was collecting water or collecting firewood, right? Because that complexity hadn't been abstracted from the human experience. A new technology, which was petrochemicals, abstracted away that complexity and gave people a lot more free time. Right now, people's relationship with technology is very manual, right? For the average person, especially someone who's not a developer, a lot of what you're doing all day is sitting in front of your screen, or you have your phone in your hand to send emails or interact with this website or interact with this protocol or do this or do that. And AI is gonna automate a lot of that, and it's gonna offer people up a lot more free time. And so we're focused at Talus on the on-chain experience. What do you do on-chain manually that takes up a lot of time? That it's not a great user experience to conduct this kind of activity, like something very simple like depositing yield or finding the best yield in crypto, right? How can we make use of aggregators, which are these protocols that form off-chain different versions of off-chain order books from price feeds of on-chain protocols, right? How can we make use of aggregators, for instance, to find the best yield in all of DeFi? If you have this asset on this chain, how can you find out where the best yield is, maybe on another chain? And if it is on another chain, how do you get it there, right? Are you bridging, right? Are you using wrapped assets? Are you using something like MPC where you're sharding the private key and we're just trading private keys around? You know, so the AI is sits at the intersection. It's kind of the glue that holds a lot of these different technologies together. Because even as we improve these technologies, even if we improve something like interoperability, or we improve something like we improve DeFi protocols and boost yields, right? The user experience of moving these funds around and making these social decisions is still very complicated, right? A user should be able to give a natural language command to an AI agent, and the agent executes that intent autonomously without the user having to do a lot of stuff. So that basically, to answer your question, how do AI agents bring together these kind of applications, and how do these different DApps how do they involve AI agents? The idea generally is that the technological complexity is going to be improved, right? The tech is going to get better, but it's a lot harder to abstract away that social complexity, right? And you do that with the AI agents. You do that by being able to give a AI really simple natural language commands, is so that you can get stuff done, even if you're not a developer, even if you don't understand AI or crypto that well, you can still get stuff done.
Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna get to the end of this podcast and ask you about what's next for Talus. Like, when do we see the project go live with mainnet? When are the first set of agents gonna go live? And what kind of use cases will we see being unlocked? At that point in time. How do those timelines look like? And also, if you can talk about the Talus token a bit, like is there any plan to roll that out anytime soon? Because I'm pretty sure that's going to be the glue bit holding the data compute and other stakeholders aligning their incentives. So
Yeah,
yes.
V1 of our first application that we're going to be launching, our first user-facing application, is going to be ready in a matter of weeks. So be watching out for that. Follow us at Talus Network on Twitter. Join our Discord. Join our community hub, and start participating in the community challenges. We have a really great community. I mean, just in the last few months, and especially since we're so involved in the Sui ecosystem right now, I mean, we have an enormous community now. I'm really proud about how we've grown. And then, yeah, just look out for V1 of our initial application, and we'll have iterations on top of that very, very soon. And Nexus, the second iteration of Nexus as well, out very,
Hmm.
very soon for developers to play with. So
Hmm.
just follow us on socials and join our community, and look out for that. On the token's not live yet. We're still coming up with our tokenomics plan, and we'll be excited to share that with the community very soon. But yeah, we have some exciting non-token initiatives that are going to be coming up in the next few weeks that everybody should look out for. So that will be very exciting. So again, just make sure to join our community. Follow us on Twitter at Talus Network, and join our Discord. Start getting involved in the community hub.
Okay, and last question, how would a new dev, just looking out, who wants to build agents, how can he start interacting with Talus to explore your tech to build on-chain AI agents?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
y-
I could take that, Ben, if you like.
yeah, sure.
So we already launched our like V1 of our framework. You could check that on our GitHub. We're also going to be launching like the next iteration in a couple weeks as well, with like further improvements, like all the learnings that we've got there from like builders, and it's going to be much more powerful. So stay tuned. Like reach out to us. Like happy to chat, happy to incubate you, happy to like see where you're at, like and build interesting concepts together.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben, Mike, for taking the time out to talk about Dallas, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.